Hello, everybody. It's Susan, and I wanted to come in today to speak about the days ahead because there's some eventful things happening, and I haven't yet covered some of it. I had hoped to talk to an expert in Pallas Athena to talk about the sextile that's happening now, but I'll just do my best. I'm going to wing it. Not an expert, but I think I understand enough to break it down for all of us. And then we're going to go into the full moon that's happening on the 1st of May. So there's a lot building up in the direction of that over the next week. And I think it all ties in rather nicely. So I'm going to just begin with Pallas Athene, who is at the very, very end of Pisces. And in a couple of days, in fact, the same day that Uranus moves into Gemini, she is actually going to move into Aries. And that's going to direct all different activities that are ruled by Mars with hopefully a little bit more wisdom and a bigger picture input. So what we see here is that she's sextiling very, very strongly the Venus and Uranus conjunction that is happening today. You can see the information here in the upper left corner, 23rd of April, 2026. I just happen to be recording this in the afternoon. It's going to be later on that Venus and Uranus are exactly conjoined. And there's no actually exact sextile from Pisces to Taurus for Pallas Athena. But then as the days wear on, as we get into the weekend, to begin with, we have the Sun, which ends up in a square to Pluto. So that can also be a very interesting dynamic that's adding into this shift that we're about to have. I've already spoken about the conjunction with Uranus and Venus in a post, so you can find that on my channel. I sometimes do posts on my channel when I don't have time to do a video, so it's worth checking that as well. And the Sun, as it's squaring Pluto this weekend, is going to be perhaps a challenge to leaders, challenge to our direction overall, to our sense of what it is that we're here to do. This is going to be the opening square from the January conjunction when the Sun met up with Pluto. So this is what the squares, the opening squares and the closing squares are where we need to adjust basically on the way to the awareness, which is the opposition phase. And we'll get that opposition phase once the Sun moves into Leo with Jupiter, and that will be in July. So there's something at this point from January that you're recognizing, realizing about what is changing, what you need to look at in a different way between the signs of Aquarius and Taurus in your own chart. And then as we get into July, we'll see the opposition based on the course correction that you're making right now. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because it's a fleeting square. It's something that's just a timing around the transits that are already going underway since January. But there may be something quite significant this weekend because there's so many highly activated transits. So it's not just the Saturday, but the combination of the Venus conjunction on today, the 23rd of April, then the Sun squaring Pluto on the 25th, and then finally the ingress of Uranus into Gemini at the same time that Pallas ingresses into Aries. So as we go forward, we see that we see this very, very tight. It's on the 26th, in fact, when we do perfect that sextile. And it's a really interesting dynamic. So let me just relay what I've understood about it, and I'll correct that if I finally get a hold of Angela Tiki, who is the Greek astrologer who specializes in Pallas Athena. And I would really love to introduce you to her if you don't know her already. And if you're a Greek speaker, she does have a YouTube channel in Greek, so you can enjoy that because she posts quite a lot about these things, and she's writing a book about it. So it's just hard to find the time to connect around these things. So what I wanted to point out was all of the little things that are, and they're not necessarily little in terms of their impact, but all of the multitude of things that are happening as we build up to the full moon in Scorpio that's coming up on the 1st. So if we start with this sextile from Pallas Athena, it's this little square. She looks like Venus with a square head instead of a round head. So this is Pallas Athena. She denotes wisdom and understanding, big picture thinking, systemic thinking, even political thinking. There's an element of inherent wisdom that comes from Pallas Athena. And here we find her now ruled by Mars, and that's from the 23rd. Well, she's sextiling Uranus from the 23rd, and then as of the 26th, she continues her sextile, but instead of being at the end of Pisces, she then goes into the very beginning at the Aries point, the very beginning of the zodiac. So let's say 23rd, 24th, 25th of April, she's in that sextile to Uranus that is much more about the closing down of something, what we're realizing, what we've highlighted, perhaps also connecting that to the conjunction with Venus around our values, around things that we have to deal with in a new way. Some kind of understanding, a bit of a new understanding based on all of the recent past, including the 7 years of recent past that we've had, almost 8 years of Uranus going through Taurus. And these are unstable degrees. The 29th degree is the anaretic degree, the last degree of a sign, and it's the most unstable when the 29th degree is happening in Pisces, because that's the end of the zodiac and the very beginning of the zodiac, moving into Aries. So it's what the Indian astrologers call Gandanta. So it's a tying and an untying of a knot simultaneously. It's kind of this tension and then the breaking of the tension simultaneously as there's this crossing over of the threshold of 29 Pisces into 0 degrees of Aries. And that's where Pallas is in the next couple of days. So what we're looking at here as she's doing that is resolving, ending, releasing commitments. Maybe if you want to listen to this from your perspective, it will match. But this is especially also true globally or geopolitically or what we could call collectively, socially, politically. Um, and so it does apply individually, and that's something you can look for again between Pisces and Taurus in your own chart. But think about this as the ending, the dissolution, the finishing up of things that have contractual import or systems that are breaking down, systems that are not working anymore. And the emphasis on this is added because we also have Juno, which is this kind of flower-looking thing, another version of Venus, actually, the divine feminine, that is really about intensity around commitments. And with the most intense of planets, with Pluto, and that has been the better part of April, that Juno has been with Pluto. And it's all the more intense because it's still holding a sextile to Mars as they're only just starting to separate. Sorry, to Saturn rather, as they're only starting to separate. And it's Saturn that rules Jupiter. Oh my goodness, Juno and Pluto. It's the end of the day for me. Can you tell? So as we're looking at all of this, there's tension and a kind of a need to release something. So we're seeing very, very strongly this pattern where there's something that it's come to the end of its line. It's the end of its rope, end of service, no longer providing this service. And it really is about creating something substantially different. And notice that this also is in application to this square as the sun approaches its completed or perfected square with Pluto over the next 2 days. So as the sun is already in the square aspect, we can include that. There's a need for change that also is about what we could call the social contract, because we're talking about Aquarius here, the social contract with our leaders, and maybe even with the notion of values, markets, everything that has to do with finances and the exchange of things in terms of things like food, systems that transport our food, transporting things that bring security. And this is the Taurian aspect of all of that. So endings, 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 but in a way that we need to take action to clarify, because where we have sextiles, where the sextile, for example, with Pluto and Saturn, it's with the emphasis on us to do something about it, to move in this new direction, or at least think of preparing to move in this new direction as things are going to take a new shape rather in a very, very immediate future. So we're going to feel palpably different as we go forward in the next week. And this is partly why this tension is peaking and then breaking as we go in the days ahead. So let's follow again as we go from the 24th into the 25th. On the 24th, Venus goes into Gemini, And then we just now have the sextile holding still from Pallas to Uranus as Venus has moved out, but she's still in an orb of sextile. And now on the 26th, we get this very strong perfected sextile in these new signs. So now we're combining Mercury with Mars, and Mercury and Mars are still actually holding their conjunction from last week's triple conjunction, and that was Saturn, Mercury, Mars, all together at 7, 8, and 9 degrees of Aries. So only Saturn is still at that degree. So there's still something lingering about what we learned in that area. And now things are starting to separate there through Aries, but they're still very tightly corresponding, we could say, still tightly connecting with each other. As we're building up to this energy, we also have a very tight square. So even just an hour or so away from a really strong square, no, an afternoon away, let's call it, from this very tight square with Mercury and Jupiter. So what I see here are a lot of ideas or resolutions to things that are full of compromise. And again, this is about us personally, but also how we're having to act collectively. And we'll just keep seeing this word compromise again for the next 10 days or so. What I do want to point out as well, as I talked about in my previous videos, there's this Kalasarpa Yoga, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a relatively modern and usually South Indian tool that is not really found in the Vedas. So we can't really call it Vedic astrology, but it is definitely Indian astrology, which suggests that when all of the original planets, the original seven, are in between the nodes on one side of the nodes, in this case, moving towards the south node, moving towards releasing and letting go, then there's going to be this tension and pressure to move in that direction of shedding and releasing. And this is something that continues until the 26th of April. So it was already from mid-April till now, the 26th of April, and it returns. And the next time that we see that is about the time that we're going to get the new moon in Taurus. And so once again, we need to have all of the planets on the one side. In fact, it'll be before the new moon in Taurus. So let's say from about the 10th of May until the middle of May. I'll mention that again when I do that video on the new moon in Taurus. So here what we find is now the moon on the 26th is aligning with Ketu, the south node. This is the final shedding of this particular sequence of events. And it's kind of like saying we're done with this whole story, this releasing, this shifting of energy that is crystallizing in the symbolism of Uranus going into Gemini. And then once the moon crosses the south node and starts to approach the north node, and it's a slow bi-monthly approach, that breaks the Kalasarpa Yoga. So it's no longer the intensity of this moment in time. So really we're in it, we're really in the thick of it, and then that intensity sort of lessens as the chain breaks. Now, this is something that is, I think, highly subjective because this tension doesn't go away. It's simply symbolizing, are we moving in a theme of letting go, or are we moving to a theme of accumulating? And that really is where all of the planets are aligning towards the south node, that we can see that we're currently really in this theme of shedding and letting go, moving towards something that feels quite important to release old ways, release perhaps patterns and things that are not really helpful. And here, Pallas in her sextile with Uranus is super, super helpful. So if I give you that, again, this idea of the notion of Juno on Pluto, representing new commitments or intensification around commitments or transformation of commitments. This is part of that theme. As I mentioned, the outer planets don't figure into these, they don't figure into the Kalasarpa Yoga. That's why we can see Pluto is definitely not on that side, on that same side of the axis there, but it still holds according to the original definition of that. Then what we have here is this questioning. So the questioning that Juno is insisting on, are you in, are you out? What is this all about? Where's the sincerity here? And Pluto insisting on something quite profound and different. So what we see here with all of these different aspects lining up is this need for whatever current agreements we expect or think are working or not working. We need to be clear about that. We need to clarify that or let them go. Just move on. And this is, I think, very evident if you just pay attention a little bit to the news. So Pallas, as I mentioned, is this kind of systemic, strategic, overall thinking. It's a way of seeing things that are a big picture, out of the box, not in the usual way. And as a result, when she combines in this really favorable way with Uranus, we can get fantastic new opportunities, new insights, new things that are not hadn't been considered before as ways out of a sticky situation, because we can all tell that we're in a bit of a sticky situation here. And so it can also release, and we'll see that when we look at the full moon coming up on the 1st of April, it can release some of the pressure of the more rigid thinking that we may have been subject to in these days. And then again, one of the things that's really important here is the insights around the patterns that underscore where we are, underlying our political systems, our economic systems, our markets, our commercial exchanges, and including diplomatic agreements and diplomatic exchanges, because now we have Venus involved in that, which does represent diplomacy. She does represent those aspects of communication and connection. Now, Venus is in her daytime form in Gemini. She's all chatty and social, but it also is about markets in a general sense and about how we do contracts, how we prepare contracts. So not so much diplomatic agreements, but all agreements. And this would definitely align with our times because a lot of the issues that we're dealing with have to do with markets and finances and money and exchange platforms even. If we think about the different platforms now, there's issues around insider trading, around betting platforms where insiders connected to the White House in the United States are profiting immensely from announcements surrounding this war with Iran. So I think we're going to find a lot of information and insights in these next 10 days leading up to or less than, in this week ahead, leading up to this full moon. Um, and then it's also with reference to our personal narratives. So it's not just the collective narrative and what's underpinning all of that, but like what is the system that we are relying on in terms of our own way of doing things, in terms of our own way of seeing how we're trying to integrate something novel or end an old thing that's clearly out of date and no longer working for us. And notice that underlying all of those things, there will be a way of navigating. There's a kind of a habitual way, a pattern of navigating, and that might be open to question now for many people. Certainly collectively it is, and this is something important. So we're going to find unconventional ways of understanding this new moment in time that can unlock a feeling of this, how does this even change? Like, where is this going? We'll find also as we go through the days leading up to that full moon that Pallas starts to move into Neptune as well. So there's going to be a strong conjunction between Pallas and Neptune is the whole first week of May, but really already starting now as I'm speaking to you from this weekend, precisely from the moment she enters into Aries. That's a 3-degree conjunction, which for me, with a slow-moving planet, is a very strong one. So she's already there trying to understand things from this new perspective in Aries, but then there can be, ideally, we could get some enlightened, visionary ideas, visionary new opportunities to see things, new ways of navigating through these different things that we need to take action on. Or we can find ourselves super disappointed or deluded even to the point where Neptune has confused the situation. So it will be important as ever to stay on our guard around being deceived and feeling even self-deceiving. That's something that's worth reflecting on. I would certainly be wary of holding really strong opinions around this time. There's no way of knowing exactly what is going on at this time. So it's a really good time to hold your judgment and see how things emerge rather than jumping to conclusions, which, especially as we still have Mercury in Aries conjoining Mars, we're definitely want to do. So be careful of that. Mercury in Aries can jump ahead of the game and assume many things that are not actually going to be reliable. So it's a highly active sky right now, really very busy. And again, another caution to not get too deep into things without taking that step back and finding the new way through, finding a new perspective, seeing where some of your thinking might be flawed or some of our collective ways of organizing ourselves can be shifted in a better direction. So let me come now to this full moon. And that's something that is hopefully going to be inspiring at the same time as clarifying, because a full moon is always through an opposition between the moon and the sun, and it highlights something. It highlights something that we already began. It's something that's already underway in the cycle. Now, I'm not using the mini cycles of, just Taurus to Scorpio, but you can do that, meaning that 6 months ago there was a new moon in Scorpio, and this is the reflection of that. But I find it much more accurate to use the lunar families that this involves. So I'm going to give you some dates here, and I'll put them in the description below, where you can understand how this is impacting you over the arc of time and how this is impacting us collectively over the arc of time of these 3-year long lunar families. So we're right in the middle now of a lunar family that started on the 1st of November, 2024, and that was at 9 degrees and 35 arc minutes of Scorpio. And then we worked into the first quarter square, which was on the 1st of August. And so the seed moment is the new moon, just to clarify that. A new moon is always a seeding. It's when the moon and the sun conjoin. In that case, it was on in Scorpio on the 1st of November, 2024. Something began there. And then you move into the first quarter square 9 months later, which is why these are known as gestation periods. And that's on the 1st of August, 2025. And this creates a crisis of action. There's something that we need to do about that. There's something we realized that the new moon was starting, or that we tried to start, or that we were initiating in some way, in that scorpionic way. And then we get to the crisis of action where we need to then decide, am I in or am I out? Am I moving forward with this, or am I going to drop it and move into something else? So that opening square of any of these types of aspects, as you heard me talk about, for example, the sun squaring Pluto on the 25th of April, that's an opening square. So we're seeing the results of what was going on when the sun was in Aquarius back in January. And so here what we have is, with the reference to the moon, the first quarter moon that is corresponding to this cycle was the 1st of August, and that was last year, 2025. That was at 9 degrees and 31 arc minutes of Scorpio. It's interesting. I wanted to call in some of the things that were happening around there, because now at the full moon, we're going to see the fruits of that. We're going to see the consequences, or become aware of what is going on and how things are changing based on that. So if we go back to that first quarter square last August, that was literally the day that Trump started threatening increased tariffs, especially on Europe, 15% tariffs for Europe. He deployed nuclear submarines to waters near Russia. In Israel increased its attacks on Lebanon at that point, like substantially increased its attacks on Lebanon during the ceasefire, as per their style. And ICE started a really powerful recruitment drive. And we're going to see a lot of the results of all of that now as we approach this full moon on the 1st of May. So this full moon then is the peak of that period of time since the 1st of November 2024. Here we have the 1st of May 26, and that's going to be at 18:23 or 6:23 p.m. Universal Time. And this is going to be where we see what is actually going on. How are we understanding what started 18 months ago? And this you can apply to your own life and use those same dates and see where you are now relative to where you were 9 months and 18 months ago. And then as we move forward, we can also keep noticing the dates and the degree points to keep track of how we can use that maybe to measure our progress or measure where we need to look back and check in. You might put that in your agenda, for example, and see coming up on the 29th of January, 2027, at 9 degrees and 17 arc minutes. Did I mention the degrees? So this Scorpio full moon is 11 degrees 20 arc minutes of Scorpio. And then in January, on the 29th, January 2027, we're going to see the closing square of this full moon. That is going to be the petering out of that cycle or the questioning around how to wrap it up, what to shed, what to renew, what to let go of to prepare for the next cycle, or what we might want to resolve to continue through the next cycle. So that will be then 9 degrees, 17 arc minutes of Scorpio. And then we get, of course, a new cycle beginning. And this cycle that we're peaking right now will end as the new cycle begins. And that end date will be the 29th of October, 2027. And that will be at 5 degrees and 54 arc minutes of Scorpio. So interesting times to keep track of because you will be able to see how your own life progresses, or if you're starting projects around now, where is a good moment to really set aside some time to question what you're doing, and especially with the themes that are ongoing, not just the moon itself, but the ongoing themes that are surrounding this moon. So if we come to the actual full moon symbolism here in a general sense for all of us, and again, that works both personally, so as we're looking at our own lives, we can apply this, and collectively, you can apply both at the same time. We have a very interesting formation here because of so many planets in Aries. We have this extraordinary, we have now a conjunction with Chiron and Mercury, and it's this Mercury, still ruled by Mars, which is ruling Venus and Uranus. And so there's something here that is going to be necessary to resolve in terms of issues that maybe we're not understanding, we haven't been able to connect with or communicate with. We haven't been able to clarify, for example, in that Mercury-Mars way, there's a need for direct communication and direct, clear message. And that message can actually be quite healing, or it can come from unresolved issues that need healing. And either way, this can be a super clarifying moment as an individual. It's still on the other side, still conjoined by Eris, and remembering that the bigger story of Eris and Chiron continues through most of 2026 because they're still really tightly in orb much of this year. It's only a 2-degree orb, which is really, really tight. And that's part of the bigger story of the social change that we're undergoing. And I've done videos on that, so I won't go too much into detail, but just knowing that there is going to be some perhaps psychological pressure or social pressure or news that can be really frustrating, or where we need to really look at our relationship to hypocrisy in a personal sense as well as in a collective sense. Where do we allow certain things to be done in one area because we think that's very important, yet if the same thing is done in another area, we can't tolerate it. So looking at these things collectively and individually is going to be part of, I think, the significant growth that will be necessary, let's say, to go forward in this new way. And if you listen to the earlier introduction, you'll understand why, because we're really now tying up loose ends around new agreements, shedding the ways that we used to agree on things. And again, think of that as the social contract as much as individual agreements. Things are shifting in a big, big way. So prior to this full moon, I forgot to mention that, but we also have this lovely, just in the days before the full moon, we have this lovely trine from Venus to Pluto, which can be, again, really, really supportive. But now she's moving out of that trine by the time of this full moon. It's still there, but it's separating, and so it's less powerful. Just before Venus moves into, or rather, just before Pallas moved into Aries and Uranus moved into Gemini, Venus was applying to that trine. So really, it's this whole week from now, whenever you're watching this, as if it's at the end of April, up until this full moon. So it's one of the beautiful saving graces of this moment because we can really work with this energy, and that includes both socially and financially as well. And then the other aspect of this, of course, is that there's a fascinating, almost perfect, real perfect sextile within 4 arc minutes of a degree between Venus and Saturn, but that will actually perfect literally minutes after, or maybe a maximum an hour or two after this lunation. And the moon itself, just before the full moon, was also in a perfect yod. So we can still see that yod. It's still very, very strong because the moon has only moved on 2 degrees from that yod. But what a yod is when you have this sextile formation here, Venus and Saturn, and then the moon itself at the 9 degrees of Scorpio, creating two inconjuncts or quincunxes. So one quincunx from the moon to Scorpio, from moon in Scorpio to Saturn in Aries, and the other from the moon in Scorpio to Venus in Gemini. And the symbolism around that is extremely important. So you can think about that as the new moon phase really is an extension of almost 3 days in total. So the major cycle of the new and full moons, sorry, I meant the full moon. The major cycle of the new and full moons is roughly 3 days, so a day and a half on either side of the perfected lunation. And that's because it'll be building up to that point of maximum, either the maximum darkness in the cycle or the maximum brightness. So here we're at the maximum brightness, and the moon is 100% into the full moon phase, even as that yod is shaping up. And so I wanted to speak to that as well, because I think this can be a significant moment individually, because there's so many things that are coming together at the same time, but also collectively. So when we see this sextile between Venus and Saturn, they're actually friends traditionally in astrology, and it's something that is very workable. It's trying to find a solution. A sextile is always trying to find the best way through things. And here, what we're looking at is this Saturn ruled by Mars, Venus ruled by Mercury, which in turn is ruled by Mars. So clearly, we're talking about conflict. We're talking about either on an individual level, self-preservation or a need to be at the very best self interested or enlightened through our own needs, but also selfish, where we're being selfish, and on a collective level, where we're working in the area of war and diplomacy, or war and trade, which is the key issue for now. And the axis of Taurus and Scorpio is all about trust and a need for security. So it's financial security, emotional security, issues of trust, issues of trying to come to a place where we can feel that everything's going to be okay in that Taurian way. But when the moon is in Scorpio, it's really deep, and it's actually not going to reveal its hand very easily. So it's very secretive, very private. And where Mars, for example, in Aries, ruling Aries in its own sign, is also the ruler of this moon. We think of Mars in Aries as being tactical. So it's going to be like, what's in it for me now? Like, what do I want in this moment? And really operating from a place of the here and now. Whereas the scorpionic energy of Mars is strategic, and it's going to think about things for a while, and it will sit with things until the moment is right. If you think about a scorpion and it sits sort of latently in the corner waiting until some, exposed ankle walks by or something, and then it stings. And this is the dynamic, the difference between the Mars in Aries, where it is, ruling by inconjunct this moon in Scorpio. And the moon will create a perfect quincunx just hours after this full moon as well, with its own ruler, Mars. So that's part of this configuration, again, because it's still within the full moon phase, even if it's not exactly at the same time. So a really intense time where we require both tactics and strategy, and we need to be able to respond in the immediate, sort of present, in the immediate future, but we also need to be tactical and hold a vision. And that's that sense of awareness of what's going on for the longer term. Because Scorpio doesn't waste energy. It's going to conserve energy until the time is right. And that's why there's so much withdrawal or secrecy or things that can remain hidden until the moment is right. And when the moment is right, there's going to be a revelation, or there's going to be an action, or there's going to be something that we are clear. This is where we stand now. Now, the thing about Taurus and Scorpio is that these are fixed signs. So they're slow moving, they don't like change. And with the cardinal sign, Aries, the very first of the signs where Mars is ruling, really strong at this time, where we have so many planets. Because once again, now we have Pallas, Neptune, Saturn, Mars, Eris, Mercury, and Chiron, all still in Aries at this time. So there's a lot of reactivity, a lot of jumping ahead, a lot of trying to do things in ways that might be suitable right now, but create problems later on. And so that moon is holding on and really looking deeply at things that have to do with both emotional and financial security. Issues around trust, issues around a reliability, which is part of what Juno and Pluto are trying to figure out here in terms of new ways of doing agreements, new ways of doing contracts, new ways of showing up in marriage, even, or in a business contract, for example. And again, as I emphasized before, the social contract, which is huge right now. So this is a bigger part of the moment in time, as these are also in a sextile to Venus, trying to work things out in a context of things being incredibly difficult for personal as well as, collective reasons. So in many, many ways, we're going to be finding ourselves just muddling through, doing the best that we can with what we know at this moment. And that's why I say it's probably a good idea to really be aware that at this moment, with Mercury potentially easily wounded, or hearing things that are difficult to hear, or having to do things in a way that feels urgent but doesn't need to be urgent, we can be tricked into thinking I have only this window of opportunity and then nothing else. So these are times when there's going to be such a lot of urgency that might come from our interior experience, but also coming from social experience, that we might actually forget to look at the strategy. So we're so focused on the tactics that we're not looking long run. And Taurus and Scorpio look long run. We need to think about things that will keep us going for a long time. And then thinking of the dates of the arc of this particular cycle can help in terms of understanding where you've come over the last 18 months and where we've come collectively over the last 18 months, and then where we're going in terms of the 18 months to come. Right, I think that's it for the tactic stuff. Yeah, this full moon, as I mentioned, we're going to see the results of everything that happened in the the first quarter phase, rather, in the beginning of August, the 1st of August, 2025. Now, again, if you want to go back, you can go back to the 1st of November, 2024. So you see how this is connecting very strongly with the US presidential cycle as well, and the stories that have, I would pluralize that, stories that have erupted in that what feels like decades, but is actually just over a year. And and here, those topics of things like the war, tariffs, issues around ICE, the deployment of ICE in American cities all around, is something that needs to be examined closely, because this is the beginning of the control. And here's the scorpionic word. The fixed signs like control. They don't want to give up control. And Taurus and Scorpio, in this case, are about control of finances, or control of emotions, or control of security. And we can extrapolate that to what we saw, the sextile between Saturn and recognize that issue here that needs to be stabilized, that is trying to stabilize, where Saturn is doing its best an energy of really like urgency that Saturn does not appreciate, wants to slow down things last. Where Venus is all about trying to go along to get along and saying things that will just kind of in the moment gloss over problems. It's not at the time, but it will be a potential tendency so that hopefully the need for something stabilized over the long run strategically and that Mars, Mercury, Saturn energy that wants to do it all now, where Saturn is trying very, very hard to slow things down, hopefully can help us come to a more pragmatic solution. A yod is always full of compromise, and the compromise is moving from the emphasis here on that moon. And so this also in world astrology or mundane astrology, which means mundane means worldly, that is populace. It's about the collective energy. And that's what we were looking at earlier with the Pluto-Juno conjunction about this social contract. And so what is the potential for being constricted, restricted, limited around money, around resources, around food, around mobility? And how is that shaping up around time? Definitely something to notice because things are creeping up in ways that are quite alarming, and things are coming together in ways that feel at times extremely rapid, and decisions are being taken around them here in Europe, for example, in the United States, Canada, and elsewhere democratically in a way that's not including any room for debate. And so these are things we want to pay attention to with our own security in mind, where we're feeling secure, safe, and grounded is going to help us make better decisions. So by being able to prepare without hysteria, but prepare for things changing. So now we already have issues around travel, issues of being, in some cases, recommended, invited, suggested, forced to work from home or to not travel, and in a variety of different ways. And this is where Uranus in Gemini is going to change a lot, and that can be change. It's not necessarily for the better, although I would like to think and hope that things can be improved by this novel way of seeing things. If we can really find a way through it, for example, with new ways of fueling airplanes or new ways of finding energy sources that can come in ways that are quite inspired and unexpected as we go forward. But for the meantime, it feels like there's quite a lot of things that are actually slowly being limited. And that's part of our own financial and popular security. So trust issues between the people and the government are huge. We will have seen that also at that Pluto square the sun. And that's again what happens just in the days leading up to this moon. Um, and then the potential for repression of information, repression of people, repression of money, access to resources. This is all possible. We have a very uncomfortable situation here where we have a semi-sextile between the Sun and Venus. Venus is ruling the Sun, and then between Saturn and the Sun as well. And that's part of this yod, which has the extra backbone of the full moon opposition. So there's a lot of feeling squeezed, and this feeling squeezed can come from the leaders themselves because the Sun represents leaders. It represents those who rule us of all descriptions, corporate leaders, government leaders, etc. So one thing with Scorpio especially on a personal level, but we can see it collectively as well, is a need to recognize, to become aware of, and to acknowledge resentment, and where we're holding anger, where we're holding a grudge, where we're holding on to emotions that actually end up like poison. So Scorpio also represents poison. And in Buddhist thought, Ayurvedic thought, yogic thought, the notion of difficult emotions comes through with the metaphor of poison, and it poisons the actual hormonal composition of the body, therefore creates toxins in the body. So things like anger, resentment, bitterness, mistrust, jealousy, these are all scorpionic dynamics. And that's not to put it all on Scorpio, but we all have Scorpio somewhere in our chart. And this is the symbolism of Scorpio. And though all of those poisonous emotions are part of the symbolism here. And those are the things that we can look at this time, because to find our way through this knot and to get a solution out of the full moon with a fuller awareness of what's going on in our lives, in our collective lives, we need to start to purge, which is also very scorpionic. It rules all of the emunctory outlets, especially the anus, etc. And so we have to purge. We have to get rid of things, not in a superficial way, again, not just to make it look good like Venus might tend to do, but with something that is more in the Venus-Saturn spirit of trying to find something that is lasting, that also works better for everyone, better relationally, better feeling, better emotions, more positive emotions. That's Venus in Gemini. So we definitely will benefit if we spend a bit of time around this Scorpio full moon from looking at issues that are holding us back, that are actually internal to us. And Scorpio represents our psychology. The moon represents the mind as well. So all of these things are intoxicating to our psychology. They are creating an imbalance in the way that we decide to move forward unless we really look at our own resentment, our own anger, our own difficulties, and especially if you are subject to like the propagandistic way of looking at other people, othering people. The othering of people is deliberate in terms of propaganda because it allows you to agree to things that you wouldn't agree on otherwise. And so we have this Aries individual energy, the self-awareness that is focused on self-preservation, self-awareness, visibility, etc., my own desire, my own wishes to operate and get into my life. And that's where we find so much of the energy feeding into this moon through the rulership of Mars. Um, where the scorpionic area is about not trusting or even loathing and hating. And it would be really, really good to find out how did I even end up here? Like, we're not born hating people, we're not born mistrusting. So, how did I end up here? And if you find yourself targeting an individual like a world leader and you throw everything at them, you, without discussion, regardless of who that individual is, you are now under the mesmerizing effects of propaganda. So whatever the leader is, I don't even care what country or whatever the political party, if you're focusing your hatred on an individual as a representative of some other idea or a community or a nation, beware of that. You have been manipulated, which is scorpionic. This is the scorpionic energy, which is why I bring it up. Equally, if you've decided that you hate a whole group of people, a whole nation, really stop and think, is that even possible? Is it even possible to hate 100 million people? Is it even possible to hate billions of people? Just really think about that. Or is it about religion? This is another potential area to examine. So all of those different things are up to us. We have to contemplate these things. And the full moon is really good for trying to figure these things out because Scorpio digs deep. It wants to get to the root of things. One of the difficulties, and this is more a natal tendency, is with the Scorpio moon. There's not so much of a desire to self-reflect as to project onto others. And that's something to beware of. So we need to really sit down and contemplate, how am I feeling all of these things that I'm actually claiming are the responsibility of others. So the risk of hasty compromise or superficial compromise is serious at this time, and that can include in your own relationships or in your own life. And especially if you're not really looking at the deeper emotions that are underpinning that, if you haven't resolved the resentments or the insecurities or the fears or the jealousies or any of those other things, the hatreds, the angers, etc., all the scorpionic things, If you haven't resolved that, then whatever agreement that you've come with is definitely going to be up for review when you come to the first quarter, the third quarter square rather, which is coming 9 months down the road. And this will be part of that theme. So notice that wherever it shows up in your life, and notice that where it's showing up in our political scene as well. I think I've said what I needed to say. This is the way, this is how I do it. I don't work with AI. I am not AI, and I don't read from AI generated text. I'm actually trying to think for myself here. So, but I also do lots of scribbles that I then have to, the writing gets so small, I have to consult my own handwriting. I think I've said it all, and then we can turn to the alt signs here. Um, Yeah. So again, what I want to just sum up to say is that the Pallas Athene in the sextile to Uranus gives us a real opening to thinking differently, to thinking from a place of systems and the way things work together, how everything fits together, whether it's a narrative or an economic or financial system or political system, whatever, seeing that maybe for the first time or seeing it in a new way and that becomes a real door opener in terms of finding our way through this time so that we don't get fixed in our ways or fixed in our emotions and come to this place of feeling like, okay, this is, it's impossible, intransigent, nothing's going to change. There's loads of opportunity to change. And what we're doing here is also part of that. So really contemplating from the inside out is where you have the most possibility for change. Don't think of what can I change outside before thinking how you can change from the inside. I want to mention too, one last thing before I go, which I'm just noticing and I hadn't put in my notes, is that Venus, for the previous couple of days before the Scorpio New Moon, is square the nodes. And so whenever planets are square the nodes, we see them as a priority in terms of trying to find a solution. So again, we have the Venus story very, very strong in loads of different ways. And here, because it's still very much in orb, this is a little bit more than 2 degrees away from this square to the nodes because the nodes are at 6 degrees 52 arc minutes of Pisces and Virgo. Venus is the exaltation ruler of the north node. So Rahu is the north node in Pisces, and Venus is the exaltation ruler of Pisces. So I do feel like that Venus that is actually quite willing to compromise, but that is restrained in terms of being too fickle or too whimsical or too unreliable, too people-pleasing, that would be the solution to getting to that north node. And as we're going to see as we go into May and as we go into the next cycle, so the Taurus new moon, the North Node in very spiritual Pisces is going to be on the fixed star Fomalhaut, which can be again another saving grace because of the beauty of the spiritual outlook that that carries. And Fomalhaut is at like 3 degrees 50 some minute. I can't remember exactly what it is, but anyway, it's coming up to the conjunction within a couple of weeks from now. It's not quite there yet because it's about a half a degree away. And I'm quite traditional about the fixed stars. They have for Fomalhaut, it's 2.5 degrees, full stop. You can't give it sign-based conjunctions and all these things that are happening nowadays. So fixed stars do not have sign-based conjunctions. They have actual conjunctions and they don't aspect in any other way. So that will be for the next time. And for right now, we're going to have a look at the full moon and not at everything else. Please forgive me. I can't do all of this for every sign, but take these ideas on board into the full moon story for each sign. Here I'm going to go backwards to, oh, that's not working. Hang on. Sorry about that. I have to do it hour by hour. There we go. So here we're going to go backwards to put Aries on the ascendant. So we're going to lose the full moon. For those of you who like to point out that the degrees don't line up, that's because we're moving the dial, as you can see. So, and we have to do this now minute by minute because there we go. We have these fictitious 30-degree signs. They're not actually a reflection of what the actual sign size is. And that's why we have to sometimes adjust within minutes rather than hours. Right. So having said all that, for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, there's still a very big pile up in your sign. And this full moon is happening in your eighth house. So while the ruler of the full moon is in your house, meaning that you have some kind of degree of operative sort of control or input for sure, the actual reflection of this or the actual sense of what's going on may not be entirely aware or in your awareness, it may not be entirely clear, although things are clarifying because of the full moon. And so when the full moon is in the eighth house, especially as it's a pure scorpionic moon for Aries rising sun or moon, because it's eight houses from those placements, what we see here is something that can be revealing something hidden from you or something that you have wanted to keep hiding. And it might be something to do with family. It might be something to do with your lineage. It can be about inherited family stuff because Jupiter, which is ruled by that moon in the fourth house of family and inherited patterns and your foundational sort of, let's say, inherited story or lineage story is deeply impacted by that moon. And so it's tying that eighth house and the fourth house together. And Jupiter, by rulership of the North Node in the 12th, is tying in the unconscious as well. So there's something here that can be deeply healing for you if you are working from that place of what you can understand, coming from perhaps things that have not really been comfortable to look at. Now, this can also include what is going on intimately in your relationships or with reference to finances and how finances might be managed or what you're dealing with in terms of shared resources, shared finances. So Mercury is with Chiron at the time of this full moon. And that's again in your first house. So very personal to you. So you might be either needing to say something that has to do with your true feelings or your true state of mind, or you might be hearing something that is needing to be heard to overcome or heal from something that feels difficult at this time. But Mars being in the first house, carrying that energy of you needing to take action, you wanting to take action, or maybe needing to potentially even take defensive action. Strategic action is coming from the eighth house. So you're understanding that the action that you're feeling needs to come forward at this time may be underpinned by deep, deep emotions, deep psychological states, or a deep fear or insecurity around money, around faith in the other, faith in your partner, trust in others. This can also be, again, financial issues, but it can be in intimacy as well. So you might be learning lessons of deep trust, plays to find your happiness through deep trust, for example, and deep intimacy. Because intimacy, for it to be genuine, requires trust. And this is where we find that moon in the eighth house showing you what becomes important to you right now, what's necessary right now. So it's definitely an emotional time. You also have now in your third house, Venus and Uranus. You had this last July. So this is not new, but the very different configurations because of all of the different shifting tides in the rest of your horoscope. Venus rules your seventh house. So again, this can correspond to needing to speak up differently in relationship. There may be something that actually needs to be dealt with, whether it be with siblings or friends, or in terms of how you communicate with your life partner or business partner, because Venus is actually the ruler of your partnership house. Something needs to change, and it's coming from this place of seeing a new way of showing up, a new pattern that is from that Pallas and Uranus sextile as well. Saturn, that rules your 10th house, is also ruling your 11th house, where we find Juno and Pluto. And there we find also the support of Saturn to stabilize what you need or to get serious, let's say, about what you need. And that's in a sextile to Venus. And so, again, Saturn being the exaltation ruler of your seventh, Venus being the ruler of your seventh, you'll benefit a lot from clearing the air in a healing way or listening, because the third house is as much talking as listening. Listening to what people have to say. Mercury rules your third house, and it's there with Chiron. There's probably something that you can learn as much as teach at this time, so that you can find yourself with this Jupiterian kind of sense of emotional and psychological grounding, a foundation that feels much better overall. So I think that's it for you now, Aries. You're not off the hook for quite some time. You know, you'll have Mercury leaving your first sign on the first house rather on the 17th of May, and then Mars follows on the 18th of May, and things will definitely calm down after that. But in the meantime, certainly the first almost 3 weeks of May, you can expect to really need to step up into the life that you're hoping for or the partnerships that you're hoping for. So I'll leave it at that. Oh, and there's also the connection here between the 3rd and the 11th, which is broadly social, but also can refer to internet as well and social media and things like this. So maybe you're needing to look at things from a new contractual space around all of that stuff, a new way of showing up, or a new way of appealing to your audience, or a new way of finding an audience. This can also be part of that story for you. All right, so Aries, make the most of this, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, sorry, I did the wrong thing again. There we are. So for Taurus, there we are. So for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this is the full moon that is in your opposite sign, your relational sign of Scorpio. And so for you, this is going to be specifically clarifying around your relationship dynamics, around trust issues, or around issues of stabilizing and how to stabilize relationships. Maybe what is necessary from the other. You might be feeling like now I need to have more from my relationship. So Jupiter is ruled by the moon, where Jupiter is in your third house. And so that rulership from the moon is asking for more connection, more communication, more awareness, maybe even more support from friends. And Venus, your ruler, is in the second house, and that also has to do with support, but usually not just moral support, but financial support. And that's something that you can really look at. Where am I not getting support? Where do I need to ask for more support? And there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And part of this can be your fear of asking for support. So, Taurus, because you have Aries in the 12th house, you're not used to divulging your anger or revealing how you truly feel about things. You're hiding a little bit of how you show up, and especially now with the full house in Aries, this would be a good time to really look at all of those, and in just the way that I outlined in the introduction. So really be honest with yourself about anger, being honest with yourself about any mistrust, honest about fears, honest about where you see your relational dynamics going. You have Pluto and Juno at the top of your chart. The 10th house is your social status. It's what's happening in your life outdoors. So not in the house, but where you interact with the world outside. And some people say, I don't have a life outside. Well, that's not true, because if you're hiding from the life outside, that's the life that you have outside. So I had that dialogue with somebody in the comments. So this is not, it's not possible that that is not fulfilled. We are alive in this space, and we have a relationship to the world outside of our front door. Or somebody said, I don't have a front door. Like, don't be obtuse. This is one of the things about the fixed signs. This was a Taurian. Don't be obtuse. Try and look for solutions instead of focusing on the problem. And this is the time to do that, because you can be your own worst enemy, especially in that Taurian way where there's a stubbornness. And the stubbornness is coming from this resistance to change, or resistance to admitting when you're wrong. This is the time where you really need to look at that and say, geez, I think I can do things differently. And there's so much of this in this moment. That's actually a requirement. It's not just an invitation. It's a requirement. Sorry about that. So here we have this opportunity for you, Taurus, to really look at what's under the hood, really look at what is going on behind the scenes, how you might be creating issues that you're not willing to look at or not ready to deal with, because the 12th house is everything that is hidden. And there's a lot of activity behind there. And often, because it's part of the shadow energy of Taurus, what happens is a lot of times people can see very clearly what is going on. Everyone else sees the shadow except the person. So this is the opportunity to really look at that and turn your attention inward, really understand what's going on behind the scenes. And if there's anything going on behind the scenes that is going to be to your detriment, or to the detriment of others, or to the detriment of relationships or family dynamics, this needs to be clarified right now. It needs to be, you have to take responsibility for those things in that Saturnian way, because you have Saturn there till April 12th of 2028. So you will be needing to look at that one way or another. Um, and all of this impacts our relational dynamics, all of it, and especially for you, Taurus, because the way that you are seeing your partner, or the way that your partner is mirroring back to you what is going on. And when I say partner, it's anybody who's sitting across the table, just speaking to that obtuse Taurus that is going to say, I don't have a partner. It's the person sitting across the table from you in any circumstance. It could be the way that you treat your neighbors, the way that you talk to your postal delivery worker, anybody who is the opposite, who is the person you're relating to. That is the reflection that you're getting right now. And take it seriously, because there's a lot that is coming through what you alone can work on, that what you alone can change. And especially overcoming fear of death, overcoming fear of loss, overcoming fear of things that might be happening in ways that feel beyond your control. Actually, you have a lot of control. You have a lot that is working in your favor. One thing that is most outstanding about this particular moment is to really connect with people, emotionally connect through socializing, through friends, through sharing ideas, through being open, through seeing different ways of working with money, working with your values, understanding your own value as your ruler is in the second house. These are really big priorities right now. And then having that show you this is the new way forward, because here we have Venus, your ruler, in a square to the North Node, where she is the exaltation ruler of Pisces in your 11th house. So that shows you the direction towards the future that you want, that is going to benefit from clarifying perhaps grudges or issues that you are not comfortable talking about, or that your partner is uncomfortable talking about, but you realize needs to come to the surface. So a lot of this is going to be affecting you in ways that maybe other people won't necessarily see, but they will definitely feel coming from you, because the vibe is very, very strong, whether or not you demonstrate that. So it's the opportune time to really get clear where you stand with others, where you stand on trust, where you stand on your issues of security, whether that's romantic and emotional or financial with other people. So a big time for all of us, but especially for you, Taurus, as your ruler has just been shaken up in so many ways in this whole week leading up to this full moon, which of course you are a part of, because the sun is creating the full moon. So if you're born anywhere from, let's say, the last 2 days of April, 29, 30 April, 1st and 2nd of May, this will impact you very strongly if you have a Taurus sun. And otherwise, let's say from 9 degrees of Taurus through till 13 degrees of Taurus. Yeah, that's going to be very impactful for you. All right, good luck, Taurus. I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, so this is, of course, big change for you overall, because now you have Uranus moving into your first house at the time of this full moon, and it's only just a few days after the actual shift. So you're getting used to things in a really stark way for Gemini. Big changes on the horizon for you. And we have this new moon in your sixth house of your everyday life and your health habits, your work habits, your day-to-day sort of structure of the day, the things that you need to take care of. And here there can be some revelations. There can be revelations around work, or around the way that you feel about work, around any worries or things that you need to deal with around your health. Something that might come up that requires your attention, or that becomes really clear. And you've got that capacity also with the Scorpio moon in the sixth house to really push yourself through things in a way that reveals what is true, what is really happening, finding out issues around, even if it's something to do with lawsuits or difficulties or obstacles between people, finding out where you are in terms of relational dynamics that somehow feel a bit sticky. And this is a great opportunity to resolve a lot of that. Where do you feel something that you're not really fully able to see yet or admit yet, and it will have an impact on your health or your everyday relationships with your colleagues or employees? people that you are having to work on projects with. Mars is in your 11th house, which is society. And again, if this is part of your story, because your ruler is also there with Chiron, as well as the Mars and Saturn, which is sextiling back to Venus in your sign, you might be finding that you're deeply affected, as are many people, but especially you might be finding that the social concerns of the moment or a fear of the future or issues that are coming through politics or society are actually overwhelming you and making you feel extremely unwell. Um, it's because you've got Scorpio on the sixth house that you feel you're so deeply connected mentally and emotionally to your health. And so this is part of the concern for all Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising in a general sense, that you need to take care of your health based on how you think, what you think about, how you communicate, and so on. And this would be a great time to realize that it might be time to turn off social media, back away, or move in a different direction with reference to how you ingest your news or talking about things with other people, and really look at that. Is that help? Is that working for me? Is that helping me? Is it bringing me peace, or is it creating a lot of turmoil? Is it causing tension in society? Am I myself, in the way that I'm reaching out into the world, creating some tensions there, or am I able to invest and create impact in my in the way that I'm showing up that actually is bringing a change and an improvement to things? So you've got Pallas also from the 11th house of your future and the house of society and social circles and networks, in a lovely sextile to Uranus in your first house of self. So that can be something that really has you creating a new way of relating to the world socially, or in your own way of perceiving your participation, let's say socially, whether it's online or literally. And this can be incredibly inventive. So if it's only just you alone, it's already great. And it might even be something that can lead to improvement for others as well. So Mercury is with Chiron at this time. Your ruler is Mercury, and it's currently ruled by Mars, which is in the 11th house. And it's that same Mars that is ruling this moon in your sixth house of everyday life. So part of your emotional nature might be impacted by things that you're realizing that are affecting your sense of how you fit into the bigger scheme of things with that Chiron in the 11th, where you're starting to, either things are real, you're dawning on you, you're realizing things, or you're talking about things like that, or you are listening to people saying things that you need to hear in terms of your role in society. There can be a need now to adjust that again, as I said. And with Venus in your first house, I think you'll find your way through, because there's a lot of support with Venus in the first house. And Mercury is looking for healing. It's going to be trying to work its way through that. Any insecurities, any concerns, any wounding around the way that you fit into friends groups or the society as a whole, is something that you can bring to your attention right now. And then with the Mars that's ruling that Mercury, and Saturn that is sextiling Venus from the 11th house, you're getting a lot of input into how your everyday life feels. And it's the result of all of this. The moon is reflecting back to you how it's all feeling. And of course, the sun is in your 12th house, which is reflecting to you also things that you might be doing or saying or thinking that are not really supportive. The sun rules your third house for Gemini. So your mind, your communications, and the way that you connect to people is all transposed by this sun that's ruling it from the 12th house. So again, lots of things coming beneath the surface or in a hidden way that might have a greater impact than you realize. If Venus is glossing over some things, trying to put a smiley face on things in a more superficial way, this would be a time to really look at that and say, no, actually, I think I need to get more serious about how I'm doing. How am I grappling with my day-to-day life? How am I grappling with my job, for example? Venus is squaring the North Node in your 10th house of your career and your social connection in terms of your ambition, whether it be your social status or your career ambition, career status, parenting as well. Venus rules your fifth house of kids as well. So this is an opportunity for you to realize that, again, that way of showing up in terms of the Venusian energy is going to impact those things, whether it be children or your lover or your, creative output or the career and social output in terms of your ambitions or how people see you, because the 10th house is your reputation. It's how people look at you, how people assess you. It's coming through that Venus. Now, the thing about that Venus in Gemini is that it can be fickle, a little bit unreliable. And here with the Mercury and Chiron, your ruler, Mercury and Chiron, in the 11th house, you want to be careful around anything that might be harmful to your reputation, damaged from gossip or saying things too quickly. Again, Mercury, when it's ruled by Aries, can say things off the cuff and it feels like it's going to be fine, but actually it may have created some ruckus or discomfort, let's say, amongst people. So consider these things because a lot of what is going on impacts how you fit in to the bigger picture of your life and especially including your future. So Mercury in the 11th is also putting you in your future. You want to really operate from this place as you want to continue. And then the moon in the 6th house is showing you what the everyday life quality is, how it's affecting you, whether it's your health or your overall just structure of your day, and how that needs to find some form of change, something different coming in. All right, I'll leave it at that. I would need to see your chart. There's so many complicated things in this particular moment in time. It's really hard to delineate all of them in a very general sense. But there we are, Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. I'll see you in the next video. So here we have Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And of course, whenever there's a lunation, you are directly implicated in that because the ruler of your sign is the moon. And so here we have this moon in the 5th house, which is about your creativity, your joy, the things that bring you happiness and how you express that happiness, and also love, romance, your children or things around children. The 5th house is also around intellect and what you're bringing to the table in terms of how you're using that. So as a resource, the 5th house is also entrepreneurial enterprises, and you've got the ruler of that in your 10th house. Equally for children, the ruler of the 5th house of children is in the 10th house of parenting. So there's a lot here that might have to do with your children or something that you're realizing about the children. They're telling you something that you're becoming aware of. It can be something as simple as recognizing that you need to have more joy in your life or that you need to have more depth of connection with your partner, your lover, especially because we've got Juno and Pluto in your 8th house and now Uranus and Venus in the 12th house. So maybe you're looking specifically for more depth of connection with your partner or a need to have a really deep conversation. Or an exchange, or if it's not if it's more like a business partnership, because also Saturn is ruling your 7th house of relationships, but that also includes business, as well as ruling the 8th house of intimacy and shared resources. There may be a need to clarify things around business, around, the Taurus and Scorpio axis is about finances in a general sense. So we have, for example, the sun is in the 11th house of great gains from what you do. And it rules your house of money. So the sun rules Leo, the 2nd house for Cancer. So there may be something here where you recognize that I now need to operate from a different place. I need to invest in different things. I need to take things out of where I'm investing now. I need to study that more. I need to know more about that. I need to find a new place of security, financial or emotional security that makes me feel more resilient at this time. So for Cancer, it can be also an expression of yourself in a creative dynamic because we've got Jupiter in your 1st house ruled by this moon. And so there can be part of you that is ready now to relay some kind of creative project or creative expression of some kind to the public, because we also have so much going on in your very public 10th house. That's the house of your reputation. It's the house of how people see you. It's how you want to be seen. It's the your ambition, your career ambition, your social ambition, and it's really, really active for a very, very long time already through April and well into May. So because this lunation is happening also with the sun in your house of the future as well as your audience or the social networks and things like that, This can also be recognizing where this part of you, how you want to express yourself, is impacting also the social networks or the audience, you could say. How you're expressing yourself is impacting your audience. Venus has gone into the 12th house for you, where Uranus went in also on the 26th. And so that for you is going to be a long journey, 7 more years of really excavating your inner experience of life, things that are going on behind the scenes, whether it be you working a little bit more behind the scenes or coming through a different way of thinking, novel ways of thinking, novel ways of working with your unconscious mind or with psychological or spiritual topics. These are the hidden houses, the 4th, 8th, and 12th, which are all air houses for Cancer. And with Gemini on the 12th house, this is what makes Cancer so intuitive, instinctively, as well as Aquarius on the 8th house. And they're all implicated here. So this can be deeply instinctive times for you that you really start to understand something, and then that becomes something that you can express at this time. You can have a deep bond with your children or an instinctual dynamic around what's going on with your children. And this, whatever this new thing is, or the thing that they're relaying back to you, can also transform you in the way that you relate to yourself. So Venus, of course, being the ruler of your 4th house, this also represents home. And so because there's so much activity around work and around the thing that you're doing out in the world, including your social status, am I partnered up? Am I not? Am I married? Am I not? All these different things. And because Venus is here in the 12th, there may be some shift around moving as well. That would be moving for an investment reason or for a reason of to do with business, like entrepreneurial need to move or change things around, or a move because of love. This is the appreciation or the understanding of something that already started 18 months ago, but it's got another 18 months to resolve. So there may be things that need to be changed around that. And then that theme will be something that you're working on going forward and that you'll hear in the introduction. You have Pallas now in the 10th house, and it's sextiling Uranus in the 12th. So you can have deep inspiration about your career or about things that you want to relay or about things that you need to do right now based on something that can be even from a dream, for example, or from just an intuitive understanding of things. 12th house can be people at a distance as well. Venus is in the 12th house there, ruled by Mercury in the 10th house, and Venus is the exaltation ruler of your 9th house. And so she's also, perhaps through the North Node, still in your 9th house, suggesting that there can be some great connections coming through foreigners, coming through foreign places, foreign lands, foreign ideas, philosophy, for example. The 12th house is loss. It represents things that we need to let go or that we are forced to let go. And again, there can be some issues here that come back to the business security issue, financial security issue. What is it that needs to be taken care of around these things? And especially because we've got Pluto and Juno in the 8th house, there may be something about finances or shared resources, taxes, or any of those kinds of things that need to be organized, something committed to in a different way. Yeah, I think that's it for Cancer. There's a lot to work with there, so I hope it all goes well, being a Cancer rising and moon myself. And I will see you in the next video. Leo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, whenever there's illumination, you are also participating because you're the sun that is illuminating the moon, and the moon is reflecting the light of the sun. And so here we have the moon in your 4th house. So this can have something to do with your emotions, your deeper understanding of what you need for security reasons, emotional security or literal practical security. Something to do with issues of what makes you happy or what brings you a feeling of contentment and security, even around issues of trust, for example. This would be something to really look at because it is in your 4th house, and it's definitely connecting in some way to the Pluto-Juno conjunction in your 2nd house, and then the sun being the ruler, your ruler in the 10th house, something about your perhaps marital status or business partnership status, um, or your social status in a general sense, how people see you and how you want to be seen. There may be something here that needs to be really looked into. You want to take a good look at that, and in terms of how you truly feel about things. Um, Mars, which is ruling the lunation, is up in in your ninth house rather, and it's ruling the fourth house where Scorpio is for you. So there can be something here around fathers in general, or father figures, or people who are guides and counselors for you as well. Saturn rules the seventh house and is in the ninth house, so it can be something to do with counseling in whatever form. It could be like astrologers, or it could be some kind of business counseling or something along those lines, advisors. And there can also be this real awareness and a drive in terms of your feeling of what you're here for, or what you want to accomplish in this time. That's the big story of Saturn and Neptune anyway for you, and it's just really strongly emphasized at this time. And then we have Mercury Chiron also coming to the end of the ninth house for you. So there's something that you might be aware of, or that you need to hear, or that you need to teach or speak about, that has to do with some awareness of your purpose, or a belief system, or something that you are subscribing to that probably needs some level of adjustment, simply because there's so much change there. There's new information coming in, there's new activity, new drives there, that I suspect that there's going to be a desire for things to start out differently already starting in April. But especially because you also have Uranus in your 11th house, and that's going to be now for the next 7 years. So you're looking at your future from a completely different perspective right now. And part of that is supported by Pallas Athene going into your ninth house just before this lunation and holding a sextile to Uranus for the days around it. And that's going to be quite significant because there's going to be some deep inspiration that is coming from either your higher minded philosophy or spiritual guidance, or your sense of your higher purpose and mission in life, things that you know through learning, through education, which is reflected by the Mercury there, as well as the Mars Saturn, which are really digging into understanding things, and then the Pallas Athene as well. So it can be spiritual, especially with the Neptune conjunction there, but it can also be just simply philosophical, like having just a whole different sense of something, having an influence on how you see your future, or how you see your role in society, how you see your role out in the public. The 11th house is both your sort of networks of groups and friends and associates, but it also is, it's connected to internet, so that network being in the quite literal sense, online, for example. And you might be starting to see yourself differently, seeing yourself genuinely as having something to teach and offer, to express. You're going to have Jupiter coming into your sign as of the 30th of June, so just 2 short months from this point. And that can give you quite a lot of a sense of, this is my moment to expand into this new role. That's kind of on the agenda for some time now, because Jupiter has been in your 12th house of your spiritual life, as well as deepening your understanding of your unconscious mind, and ruling the North Node that is in your 8th house, of also referring to your psychological state, things that are being revealed to you, things that have to do maybe with the occult, things that have to do with psychological potential trauma, or difficulties, or patterns of behavior that you inherited from the family. And of course, the moon is down in the fourth house, creating a grand water trine with all of these things, or at least by sign-based trine. And so the theme is very, very much psychological, but the action that is required is coming from your vision for how you show up in the world. So digging deep in a way so that you can move out into the world. You will be visible in some way, because when the first house ruler is in the 10th, you're visible in the community that you belong in. You're visible either maybe in your role of parenting, or in the role of some form of leadership, or how people see you in your space. It could be your professional space or your community space. I think that's kind of it. Of course, the ninth house represents publishing as well, but nowadays publishing can be like this, like what I'm doing here. It can be videos, it can be online courses or whatever. It doesn't have to be strictly speaking a book, but it may be. And this is all something that you might be focused on and moving in the direction of. Um, the ninth house has to do with your overall sense of purpose and your dharma. We use the ninth house. First, fifth, and ninth houses are the houses of dharma, and they're very fortunate houses. But what seems to be true here is that you will find your fortune through taking action. So it's going to be, there's a requirement to step up and do something about it. Ninth house is also conferences, meeting people in conferences, travel with a purpose, travel like not to hang out at the beach, but travel to go and learn something or share information. And all of that is possible as well at this time. But whatever you're doing that for needs to come from this place of sustainability. Do I have the resources, like meaning the psychological and the emotional resources to do this thing? How will this impact my family if I do this thing? Is this about the tension or the pull between the work that you need to do sort of out there and what is going on in the home? And that can also be a reflection of your family dynamic as much as your marriage or just your own personal resources and what you're able to draw on. And I would say if that's up in question, then you want to try and draw on your life philosophy or spiritual philosophy or religion, because Mars is up there ruling that moon in the fourth with Jupiter in the 12th. So really supporting you at this time, trying to understand how your faith or your belief system can really get you through potential for, feeling challenging times in this moment in your life, if that's the case. That would be the solution. All right, now I'm starting to ramble, so we're going to move on now to Virgo. Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This lunation is in your third house of communication, of connecting with siblings, of working with people from a place of community, for example, your local space or the like business associates that are here and now doing exchanges with you. It's like a commercial type of house. And everybody else practically, including your ruler, is in your eighth house. And so that's other people's money and resources that need to be shared or decided about, including intimacy and issues around intimacy, whatever might arise there. You've got Saturn that rules your fifth house of love and children and what brings you joy or how you express that joy. And it also rules your sixth house of work, and it's there in that the eighth house where everything is tied to what is connecting you to someone else. This is also an aspect of occult as well. And so Mars from the eighth house ruling the moon in the third. And by the way, the moon is in her joy in the third house. It's the house of the goddess, the moon. At the same time, whenever you have a Scorpio full moon for Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, you have the sun in the house of its joy, and you have the moon in the house of its joy. So actually, these can work really well for you, so that you can strategize in a way that is that brings you a sense of pulling things together from a higher vision. And so it's actually quite good. Scorpio full moons work really well for you. And in this case, you've got a rulership of Mars from your eighth house and your ruler also in the eighth house. So there's a lot that is coming forward about what you get from others or what you are exchanging with others, how you connect in a way with others. Is there a plan to get married? Is there a plan to bond for a longer term? And here, that moon is really about how you're looking at that, how you think about that, how you communicate about that, how you feel about your everyday experience of connection with people. And most especially, of course, your loved one. We have Venus and Uranus in the 10th house of your social status, so that can literally be a change of social status, going from single to married, going from married to divorce, whatever. If this is about a divorce, if there's some negotiations underway needing some effort, they can be a bit fraught because that's not easy energy to negotiate with. There can be energy of real resistance or pressure coming from the other, maybe just more work required to get to a conclusion or get to an agreement, for example, around a will or a testament, or perhaps even issues around taxes and things that need to be dealt with around taxes. Um, Overcoming fears is also really important. So again, with the Scorpio moon, that's part of the topic, part of the dynamic. It can be an opportune time to really explore with Saturn, with everybody in your eighth house, and because Mars is also ruling that third house from the eighth house, this would be a good time to really stare in the face of any fears that need your attention, because confronting them, taking action on them, would be very healing at this time. You've got Chiron with Mercury, overcoming whatever the maybe family taboos or social taboos are that you're really needing to overcome. And it can also be again about occult things. So maybe there's this real drive and a desire to learn more occult things, things that come through magic or astrology or all the usual culprits. And also Jupiter in your 11th is holding a space of optimism for you right now. So it's actually quite a good time to be thinking in terms of clearing the space of your mind, because third house representing your mind, clear yourself of resentment, grudges, whatever holds you back, whatever fears are there holding you back, so that you can get to this happier place socially or in the future, or your sense of how you reach out into your life and receive the blessings of Jupiter in the 11th house, which will be immense because that's the house of Jupiter's joy. So this is fantastic for you right now. You won't see this again for 12 years because you've got Jupiter in the house of its joy, the sun in the house of its joy, and the moon in the house of its joy. And that's all pretty darn awesome. And so it's a great opportunity for you to really dig deep into whatever either mental or communication blocks or fear blocks or need to connect, or even if this is about an elder sibling or if there's something going on there, you might benefit from that elder sibling. This third house is where the moon is, the 11th house is the elder sibling. Extended family may bring you a lot of support. You might get some news from extended family, for example. Realizations around childhood, again, with that reference to the eighth house and the dynamic with the third house, that can also be very important for you right now. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And of course, Pluto in your sixth house of work with Juno, and in this really extraordinary connection now with as a trine to Venus, Uranus, and then earlier there was again the still holding sextile with Saturn. So your everyday work, your everyday health, much of this is still very strongly impacted by this moment in time. Overall, it's not just this full moon, but this moment in time for many days and still to come. I think that's it. Yeah, so your ruler, Mercury, will be leaving your eighth house, going into your ninth house as of the 17th of May. You'll be happy to know that. And also Mars will be leaving your eighth house on the 18th of May, going into your ninth house. That becomes a trine to you. And so this also becomes a little bit more constructive, less sort of oblique and not really entirely clear to you. So a lot of the work that you might need to be doing in terms of getting where you need to go with all this eighth house stuff, and the realization around whether it's communication or thinking about things or your mental health and situation, or siblings and extended family, all that stuff, it becomes more clear because things kind of literally come out of the dark after that point, and it becomes just much more obvious for you. And it does look like there is a big shift because of that Venus square to the nodal axis, which is in your first and seventh house of relationship. Venus is the exaltation ruler of your nodal axis, and Mercury ruling Venus from the eighth house could be that many of you are indeed talking about plans for new relationship dynamics. Does that mean getting married? Does it mean getting divorced? It's new relationship dynamics. That will be the new expression of you, because that Uranus is partly showing you from in a different way, in a much better place for you, whatever happens, whether it's in or out of a relationship. All right, so Virgo, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Libra, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So this lunation is in your second house of family, what supports you overall, the resources you have to draw on, financial or otherwise, issues around food potentially as well, things that have to do with eating habits, what drugs or other things you might consume as well, and how that is working for you or not. Um, and there's certainly a lot here that focuses on value, your value, the value of things, the value of relationships, the value of others, or what value others attribute to you. And that because all of that is ruled by this Mars that's in your house of relating. So you're in just this huge moment of relationship dynamics, where you're really reconsidering things perhaps from this place of your personal values and whether that relationship is working or those relationships are working for you anymore. Certainly, there's a revelation here that comes from the eighth house to the second house that can be about intimacy or about what you are receiving from other people because of relationships, business or personal, and what you're giving. And is that in balance? And Jupiter in the 10th house um, is ruled by this moon, so it's going to reflect your social status or your career status after this understanding. It's going to show up as a reflection of your social status, or at least your personal ambition, where you want to end up. Venus is your ruler, and she is in the ninth house, newly in the ninth house with Uranus, which is going to be there for 7 more years now. So this is a very different vibe for you because now you've got Uranus in a much more visible, prominent place that is trinal to you, really supportive for you. Um, and as a result, there can be something about this whole relational dynamic or maybe financial dynamic that has a lot to do with connecting your values to your sense of your life purpose or your higher sort of philosophy of life or your personal belief system. As Mercury is ruling that ninth house from the seventh house, um, I suspect that whatever you need to discuss with a partner is also part of this new vision for yourself that becomes really clear to you around this time of the full moon because you're seeing something of your value, what is available to you. And it's at a time here where there's this yod. So Venus is in this sextile to to Saturn, which is in your house of relationship, where we also find the ruler of your house of relationship. So we know this is significant, what's going on here. And it's that Mars that is also ruling the moon. And this is what we call a yod. That's what I was describing in the beginning. So your focus of your yod is your value. It's money, it's possessions, it's your family. It's your sense of what how people treat you based on your value, or how you allow people to treat you based on your value, and also how you are feeling about yourself based on your value. So you might find that you are mirrored really, really loudly at this time. Can you say that? Mirrored brightly at this time because of that Mars, plus the Mercury Chiron in your house of relating, and your exaltation ruler Saturn in the house of relating, where you're getting some new feedback, new input, where you're realizing, okay, something needs to change, something needs to be different. How am I relating to my family with reference to the way I relate? How am I relating to my family or to my own needs, my own values, with reference to the person with whom I relate, or the people, or the business partner, etc. You might you're now newly perhaps aware of dynamics in the relationship area that really require almost a complete renovation at this time, or at the very least, a really good, solid review. And again, go back over the dates given in the beginning of this video so you can see the lunation families and get those dates, because this might be something that really shows up clearly to you in terms of previous situations. The sun is in the eighth house of marriage and committed dynamics, or what you share within partnership, what you receive from others, and it's in a square, or just before the moon was squaring Pluto and Juno from your fifth house of love and children and so on. So this could be, for some of you, issues around issues that might have to do with your children, with love affairs or lovers, or a way of loving, with even the topic of children. Should we have children or not? This might be part of the challenge around what is being talked about. Are we both on the same page? Do we both want children? Do we want another child? Do we want no children? Whatever the thing is, this seems to be topical. Mm. And that eighth house, of course, represents everything that is sort of hidden psychological stuff. That is what is casting the light onto the moon in the second house. So you might start to be realizing how certain things are much clearer to you now, with more awareness of what is there in terms of inherited family trauma, inherited psychological patterns, intimacy, and things like that. And again, this notion of security. Am I feeling secure about these things? Is that bringing me security, or feeling threatening? Are there issues of jealousy? Are there any issues of financial security that I need to take care of? And all of that is based on conversations with the people you're partnering up with. Um, all right, I think I'll leave it there. Do listen to the beginning of this, because I think you'll find that quite interesting in terms of that dynamic of the money story, or the trust and intimacy story, which is the classic combination here of the second and eighth house. All right, so Libra, I will see you in the next video. Make the most of it. So for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this is, of course, your full moon of the year. And it's happening at 11 degrees, 51 arc minutes of Scorpio. So if you have anything in Scorpio from, we'll say, 9 till about 13 degrees, this will be really impactful for you. And it's something that is really highlighting that aspect of your chart. So it's personal to you. You're seeing something about yourself that is part of the reflection of the other. So as you're seeing yourself through the eyes of another, or you're seeing your relationship dynamic through the eyes of another, and it's mirroring back something about you that you are aware of, because the moon represents our mind, it's our emotions, how we feel about things, obviously, but also the deeper sense of knowing, the intuitive mind, the instinctual mind, especially in Scorpio. And so this is something very personal to you that has a lot to do with how you live your everyday life. And that's because your ruler Mars, which is ruling the other Mars sign, Aries, is in your sixth house, along with a lot of other things. And so your focus is really, really practical at this time, incredibly pragmatic. Do listen to the introduction to this video, because you'll get a lot more information as well, that is more symbolic stuff around the meaning of this moon. But in terms of the practical application, there's something quite important for you to be taken care of in your everyday life. So you might find yourself really working hard, needing to restructure things around work, for example, having to tend to your health, having to tend to some kind of a regime that supports your health in a better way, needing to have conversations around work, whether it be colleagues or people who work for you, like some kind of employment contract, or people who work around your home, your cleaning staff, your gardener, whatever. That's that kind of unequal relationship, which is in the sixth house. You might also, because the sixth house traditionally is open enemies, it's like the people you recognize, or let's say the conflicts that arise because of interpersonal relationships or through people. You might just have to be grappling with a few things and setting the record straight on things. And that can come through where you're perceiving things, or where you're seeing things from a fresh perspective. You're seeing things in a new way. This can even include with reference to your partner, your life partner, because the sun is in the seventh house. So my dog is now playing with a squeaky toy. So if that's in the recording, I'm sorry. Um, she's bored, and this is going on very, very long. So it's something about your relationships, something about your partner, whether it be a business partner or life partner, something about work or social status is huge at this time also because not only is your sixth house very full, focusing a lot of your attention on everyday work, it's for later, puppy. We can't do it now, okay? Later. Um, Sorry. So the tenth house, your career house and your social status house and your personal ambitions and so on is ruled by this moon that's now in your seventh house. So whoever you're on the journey with, your life partner, your business partner, good friends, etc., is determining how that 10th house result is going to feel to you. And it's also based on how, your ruler is doing stuff every day, this very specific, very pragmatic, pardon me, practical application of your attention and effort in that sixth house way. If there is anything to do with crisis or, sorry, just a minute. Are you okay? So she's making weird sounds now. Um, if there's something about health or if there's something about, tasks that need your attention, just take it at full force in the first half of May, just sort it out. And or let's say within the first 3 weeks of May, because Mars, your ruler, will still be in your sixth house, giving you lots of vim and vigor. It's the house of Mars's exaltation. Mars loves a challenge, and it's there in the house of challenges. So this is your opportunity to sort things out, get over whatever needs to be dealt with, and um, and then equally, that might include difficult conversations, things that need to be resolved, the misunderstandings or things that need to be resolved with day-to-day topics, day-to-day things. It's a good time, I think, for you to resolve health issues because you do have quite a lot of support for that here. I would have to see your natal chart for any more depth there, but I'm not saying you are ill. I'm saying if you are, this is a really good time to resolve that. Venus is with Uranus now in your eighth house. So you've now got a little bit of more stability or more clarity, perhaps, after the 8-year journey of Uranus through your seventh house of relationships, which will have created huge changes in relationship dynamics of all kinds. Again, the intimate partner or the life partner type relationship or the deep friendships and business partnerships of all kinds that will have been really changeable, to say the least, or innovative or different, or the people that you were relating to were very much those ways. Um, and that is going back especially strongly to 2018. April 2018, so really 8 years. And so now Uranus is in your house of intimacy, and it's in a lovely sextile from Pallas, which is in your sixth house, to the eighth house of what you share with other people. Also, the aspect of what is hidden from us in terms of psychological stuff or the literal occult. What is occult means hidden, what is occulted from general awareness. And there can be also a renewed interest now with Pallas going into the sixth house in alternative health ideas. Mercury is in your house of health, ruling that eighth house, and it's with Chiron at this time. So you might be having this really interesting impulse, let's say, to move in the direction of healing through alternative methods or learning that and actually wanting to grow through new avenues of career, what do you call that, like career growth. And this can be quite very much to do with healing. So Scorpio anyway has a lot to do with healing. The Scorpio Taurus axis is a lot to do with healing. The Scorpio end is either surgery and like having to investigate and maybe cut into a body to heal, or it's medicine and poison as well. So, and the psychological aspects of healing as well. So, if that's true, this is a fabulous time to be sorting that out. It's a fantastic time. Jupiter is in the top of your chart at the ninth house of higher learning, higher education, expanding your vision, expanding your knowledge, expanding your life philosophy in a beautiful way and a harmonious way to you because it's trinal to you. Where this moon is also going to receive a trine from Jupiter. and that will be the next day. So on the 2nd of May, Jupiter will be trining the moon from your ninth house to your first house. And then also you have the North Node in your fifth house, which is the other trine to you. So there's a lot that you're feeling, like a new expression through yourself, through an awareness of self. Either it's through your emotional changes or how you want to express your emotions or your joy or your new philosophy of life. Um, or is it about higher education? The fifth house is also the house of intellect, the house of students. I'm pulling it all out there for you, Scorpio. And also your modern ruler, Jupiter, sorry, not even, your modern ruler, Pluto, is in your fourth house. And um, and that will be for a very long time, till 2044, since 2023. And what seems to be impactful for you here is having to renegotiate some things around contractual relationship, perhaps around literally where you live, or something to do with the sort of contract of the emotional bond and the emotional contract that you have with your family, your lineage, your through the way that you live, the dynamic between you and a partner and how you live together or not, depending. Uranus going into the eighth house can change the dynamic of marriage. So whatever that means, change is change, either direction. Um, and of course, Venus is in the eighth house of intimacy, ruling the seventh house of marriage. So there is something that you're receiving. It could even be financial plus from a partner, married partner or business partner, that you're receiving money from them. Um, so many possibilities. Okay, I think I've covered it all there for you, Scorpio. I'd need to see your chart to tell you more about that. Good luck with that, and I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, you are having this lunation in your sixth house of everyday, sorry, your 12th house of your hidden things, anything that is hidden from you. The Sun is in your everyday sector, the work sector, and it's reflecting onto what is going on in your behind the scenes area of life. Now, this can describe issues around health, balance around health, physical, mental health. Uh, it can describe issues around your everyday life and how you might feel like you need a break, maybe need to step out of things. Pardon me. And because the moon rules your eighth house, where your ruler is, and of course this is the moon in the 12th house. So we're tying in now the 12th house with the eighth house, and your ruler in the eighth is tied into you, as well as your fourth house of your psychological foundation and what you need to feel happy and secure, where we find the North Node. There's a lot here that is perhaps still things that you're working out psychologically or, just behind the scenes in terms of how you are feeling about yourself and how things are shifting for you, how they have been shifting for you. You also, Venus, that is the exaltation ruler of your fourth house, where the North Node is in the house of relationship for you. And squaring that node, you have the nodal axis from the 10th to the 4th. So the North Node in the 4th is suggesting this is a period of your life until the third week of July that you spend a lot more time on your home or on your family or on your personal needs, on your need for setting up a foundation or finding more security. And this might come quite literally from something you receive through inheritance or something you're receiving through the family lineage, but it can also come from wisdom that you're gleaning from understanding your mind better, your psychological mind. And the moon is highlighting this. The 12th house is also the house of self-undoing, in the sense of the things that we do that we know we shouldn't, the things that we don't do that we know we should. And that can also be with reference to grieving and loss. There may be something that is in your awareness at this time that might be specific to a situation that is fresh, or it can even be things that you're realizing are still there in a lingering way that you're now processing. There's a huge amount of activity in your fifth house, which is trinal to you, very supportive, putting a lot of focus on how you express your happiness, your love, your fun, your joy. how you connect with your children. There may be something going on in the life of your children that is part of this bigger story, and perhaps requiring a little bit more structuring or a little bit more of your time invested in that, whatever that is. It could be a passion project, a hobby, or something that you want to get more deeply involved in, like you want to turn a hobby into a business, or you want to, prepare for the Olympics, for example, whatever the thing is. And so this is really a huge focus for you right now. And the fifth house of love, romance, children, joy, creativity, etc., is where we find Mercury as well, ruled by that Mars that's there. And Mercury rules your seventh house of romance. Well, not romance, partners, relationship. I think that was the word I was going for. It's been a long afternoon. Um, the other, let's say, business partners as well. The fifth house is entrepreneurship. So this could also be with reference to new inspired connections with entrepreneurial partners as well as life partners. And this is a positive dynamic in the sense that there's this really new, fresh energy that's coming into your relational sector. So there's a huge amount of change that you can expect over the next 7 years in the area of relating and also in the quality of relationship that you have. So the type of relationships will be different. The individuals with whom you relate will be different, and the quality of relationships that you seek out will be changing you as well as being different themselves. Mm, what else is there? There's a sextile from Pallas, Athene to this Uranus. And that means that from the fifth house to the seventh house, there may be some creative and innovative ways of understanding how to bring your love or your fun or your humor and joy out into the relational dynamic in some way. And you've had a square from the sun in your sixth house in the days building up to this lunation to Pluto and Juno that are in your third house of communication and your extended family and your siblings and so on. So there may have been some need for you to step in or do something in a practical way that had to do with that or with a desire that comes through your own willpower and a new way of seeing your engagement in life in a general sense. And again, because you have that South Node in the 10th house, we know that there's a change in terms of your ambitions overall and a change in terms of how that's expressed, maybe through the actual job. So all of these planets that are in your fifth house now are shifting, week by week, shifting into your sixth house of work. So whatever this is, kind of get a handle on what you need to feel happy about. This moon is showing you perhaps even things where you realize I'm just not happy or I'm feeling it's all too much, it's all too heavy, it's not where I want to go, it's not the thing I want, this is the thing that I want. And so there's a realization around that. The 12th house is also people at a distance, far away places and people at a distance. And so maybe you're also realizing how your emotional connection to someone who is either has passed or is far away geographically or just out of sight is impacting you. I think that's it. I would need to see your chart, I think, to be able to say anything more about that. There's a lot going on, but it's an ongoing story. So we've already covered some of it, and we will come back to cover more. So I hope that was helpful, Sag, and I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So this lunation is in the house of your future and the house of great gains in the 11th house for you, which is Scorpio and ruled by Mars, which is in your fourth house, where your ruler is still connecting and has been for the last couple of weeks, really tightly conjoined by Mars. And that Mars is your exaltation ruler. So you have been really, really busy and focusing on your roots, on your perhaps property issues of housing and home, family lineage, issues around parents or family stuff that needs your attention, meaning especially your own parent, maybe a mother figure or whatever family dynamics, family of origin or family that you've created. And then that moon in the 11th house can also represent your relationship to society in a general sense. And maybe there are issues here around what you realize you're trying to organize based on what you need to feel secure financially or literally, emotionally, psychologically as well. And now you're seeing that as a result of what is happening socially or as a result of how you see yourself going ahead in the future. The moon for you rules your relationship house. So this can also have to do with the vision, how you envisage your future with a partner, with a person. Is this going in the right direction? Is this the right person? You have this wonderful Jupiter in your seventh house to help you establish the right relationship with the right person. It doesn't mean that all relationships are going to be fantastic because Jupiter is there, no less that it's even exalted. It means that relationships will work out in your favor and be good for you regardless of what happens. So in some cases, that will mean that the relationship needs to grow and develop, or in some cases, it's where you realize this is done, we're done. Um, and that's based on your vision of how this is going forward in the future. Also, equally, perhaps how you're connecting with people in society in general, or maybe a desire to not connect with people. You've got this fourth house, Aries. This can be part of that misanthropic kind of energy that Capricorn is known for, where it's just like a little bit grouchy. This is the house of emotions. It's the house of happiness, and it's Mars. And so you're happiest when you have a goal. You're happiest when you're ambitious and driven, where you're doing all kinds of things, which looks like is true right now. But whatever may be keeping you unhappy, if there is anything there, notice that because that will impact the vision that you have for what's possible going forward. And equally, if there's something in terms of relationships that needs to be expanded or invested in or, dealt with in some way, maybe in a contractual way, especially because Uranus and Venus are in your sixth house working on contract level stuff. This would be something then you really focus on the picture that you have of your future. What's the goal? What's the thing that I really want to achieve here? Um, and of course, the sun is in your fifth house. The sun enjoys being in the fifth house. It's ruled by this Venus in the sixth house. So again, it can be something to do with kids, your children, love life. Um, yeah, creative expression, your romantic expression. And there has been just in the days before this full moon, which by the way is on the first, although it indicates the second, it's because I went through, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull that back for you. So we're just going to find the original chart and then I'm going to go forward from here because otherwise we've lost it. We've lost it for you. Okay, Capricorn, there we are. So we're still, oh, anyway, it goes on the 2nd of May. Okay, never mind. So it's the 1st of May when we're having this full moon, but in the days building up to that, there was this square from the sun to Pluto in your second house. So there may have been something also to do with entrepreneurial dynamics that was about money, or something about your kids that has to do with your family and what supports you, or how you want to connect in terms of some kind of entrepreneurial project that might involve investing, for example, or some degree of connection through other people's money. The sun rules your eighth house of other people's money or shared resources in general, and also um, intimacy, marriage, and so on. So again, there's this whole tying in between your money houses and the house of your expression, creativity, children, hobbies. So many options. It's a lot to try and figure out here, but I'm trying to give you a picture. So Uranus has moved in now definitively for the next 7 years into your sixth house of work. Um, and with Venus, Venus is also the 10th house ruler. So she is ruling your social status. She's ruling your career status, your ambitions, and your, sort of the way you'd like to be seen and remembered. So a new job, perhaps, Capricorn, a new vision for your everyday life and how you want to be remembered or how you want to show up in a general sense. Very positive because it's Venus is trinal to the 10th house that she's ruling. And she's getting quite the sort of relay of information from Mercury, who is ruling the sixth house, with Chiron in the fourth. So you might start to realize, actually, I need to calibrate my everyday work to actually accomplish the thing that I need. This would be a good time to look at that. If you're feeling under supported, or if you're feeling like you're just really needing a break, this would be one way of looking at that. Because there's a lot going on in your fourth house, and often that reflects on a potential for feeling psychologically or emotionally overwhelmed. It's a lot. Even for a Capricorn, it's a lot. But your ruler is there and your exaltation ruler is there. So, I mean, you got this. It's just that often you don't talk about your emotions because you've got Mars ruling your fourth house. And so it would be good if there is anything that feels like overwhelm, it feels like it's too much, definitely then talk about it. Venus is the exaltation ruler of the North Node, which is in your third house. Rahu is about expanding and bringing in new things here in the area of communication, or connecting through your siblings, connecting through extended family, connecting through your neighborhood and people. But it's especially about how you connect with people in general and communicate. So if there is an issue, if there's something health-wise or something that feels like too much going on, then that will feed into this new way of communicating, or and vice versa. It will be part of the need to communicate in this new way. And Jupiter is ruling that, and Jupiter is very favorable, so people will be receiving you favorably. And that includes therapy, by the way, because seventh house people can also be in the interaction of therapy. Whether you're the therapist and the counselor, or whether you're receiving that, either way, it's beneficial. I think that's it. I'm going to leave it there, Capricorn, and I will see you in the next video. So Aquarius, this lunation is in the 10th house for you. It's the top of your chart where everybody sees what you do. So this can be some degree of your ambition or your reputation and your social status, how people see you. Are you married? Are you not married? Are you the boss? Are you the employee? Whatever the thing is. And this will be highlighting that role. It will be highlighting how you feel about that, how you feel about the ambition at the moment, what it is that you want to invest in, or the results that you are seeing, especially if we go back to 18 months before, where the new moon that is part of this lunation family will have also initiated something in your house of your personal ambitions, your career ambitions, your role in your career, your role in the family, your parenting role, all those different things. Um, and then, of course, Mars, which is ruling this moon, is in your third house with your ruler, Saturn. And so there's a powerhouse of drive at this moment. So maybe you're realizing, okay, if I just do more of this and I put really a lot of juice here, really emphasize this skill, this willpower, this drive, that's all the third house stuff. This will help me get the results that I'm looking for, or that I'm discovering I need to adapt, perhaps based on this full moon revelation for you. It's revealing something to you, it's showing something to you about your social status or about your feelings around that, because it's, of course, the moon. When the moon is in the 10th house, there can be a lot of fluctuation around your image, your popularity, your social status, and so on. And that tends to be more the case when it's a natal chart, but it's worth thinking about right now, too. And then your modern ruler is Uranus, and your modern ruler is now newly in your fifth house for the next 7 years, just like it was last July. It's with Venus as well, just like it was last July. And it's creating this fabulous trine back to you, much, much easier to deal with in terms of a feeling of flow of creativity, a flow of change, a flow of finding your way of expressing yourself, connecting you to new ways of loving, perhaps new ways of relating to children, or deciding to have children or not have children. New ways of expressing your creative self. And that third house that is so packed right now is all about your skills, your talents, your musical abilities, or your artistic abilities, and how you express that, and finding your your drive to display all of that stuff. You have Pallas, Athena now newly into your third house, just days before this lunation. In fact, she moved into Aries on the same day that Uranus moved into your fifth house. So that was the 26th of April. And they're sextiling for quite some time. And that sextile is pulling together your communication skills or your actual skills, your dexterity, your talents and your gifts all into the creative sector and your self-expression sector. So there may be something that you're really clear now. This is how I need to do it. This is the way I want to go forward with that. That's how I want that to sound or look or taste or feel or whatever, as you express something of yourself out into that fifth house. And then Pluto, of course, in your first house is also receiving that trine, particularly from Venus. So that's quite nice because it actually, sorry, my dog's making funny noises again. Sorry. Um, she's really desperate to go out for a walk. So here we go. Almost there. So we've had Venus now in a trine to Pluto, which is fantastic. Wonderful support from the fifth house back to you. Friends or lovers or children or whatever, just brightening up your day or creative aspects of your life. Money through some business enterprise, for example. And then the sun in the fourth house has been squaring Pluto also, but in the week before this lunation. And so that's something that is also interesting to look at in terms of your awareness of your connection to home, family, your lineage, your father, things that might be ending or hidden from you in a psychological sense or emotional sense. What you truly want to feel or experience in terms of security, and that will be displayed or revealed in your 10th house, for example. Think of it that way. And the sun rules your seventh house of relationships. So this could be your life partner or something about that that is coming through this feeling of emotional security, psychological security, etc. Jupiter in your sixth keeps you busy until the third week of July. Then it goes into your seventh house of relating. So that is, again, where you're going to really see a lot of the emphasis on partnership. But really what you're looking at here is more on what you need. So maybe get refining all of that before Jupiter goes into the seventh, refining what you need, refining how you want to show up, how you want to be seen, and in preparation for then the focus, a very strong focus for over a year on Jupiter in your seventh. And I will be doing a video separate on that, so that's we've got time. I will see you in the next video and make the most of this, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye. Oh, we missed Pisces. We're gonna have to do the little minute things. So there we go. So as I've said before, the houses are not aligned. Houses are not aligned perfectly to 30 degrees. That is our human design. So we have to shift. They don't all cooperate. It's not always 2 hours per sign that we get the ascendant. Right, so Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, we have a lot of change in your ninth house of your sense of your, or at least a lot of awareness, let's say, in your house of the sense of purpose, your vision, your reason for being here, your raison d'être. It's the meaning, the thing that gets you out of bed, and you're noticing that now. Does that need some more of your attention? Is that something that requires more awareness? The Mars that is ruling that ninth house is in your second house of values. You may be wondering if you're still aligned with the values of the things that you're doing. And that also, in the ninth house, it can be what you have faith in. Is there a wobbliness around faith for you at this moment? One of the reasons Pisces has such strong faith is because you've got a fixed sign Scorpio on the ninth house. So I'm not saying that that's always true for every Pisces, but this anyway indicates that there's something that you're noticing around that, and certainly around your vision for why you're here, what you do. And that can also be with reference to love, because the moon rules your fifth house. So ambitions around love or a vision of what you thought that would look like, and is it matching up with that? You've got Jupiter in your fifth, offering you an awful lot of opportunities around expanding your sense of joy and creativity and even romance. But this might be what you're realizing is needing either a shift of focus or a new focus in terms of fulfillment. The second house, the drive around issues of money, resources, your value, what you value, how you feel valued, um, possessions of all kinds, belongings, resources of all kinds, including yourself as a resource. It's all the focus right now. That includes also your second house represents your family in the way that your family supports you and in the family dynamics that you have. So it can also be that there's a lot of yes, finances and family stuff going on right now. And where you might need to step up, you might need to be part of the contribution or the effort to help others rather than receiving in terms of receiving help. Um, so Venus, your exaltation ruler, is in the fourth house for you, and she's just moved in with Uranus, where it will stay for another 7 years. And I did a whole video on Uranus. You can look at that. But this is squaring your node, the North Node, which is in your sign. And so Venus in the fourth house is asking you to figure out what it is that you need to feel happy, what you need to feel secure or at home, or how you connect with your family or your home, how you connect to your roots, your lineage, literal property, for example. With all that energy in the second house and then Jupiter in the fifth house, there may be a desire to invest in something. Is that a good idea? That would be the question you are asking. I am not giving you an answer. And so this is also something that might harmonize things at home or change the atmosphere around home or change your feeling of security. We have Pallas Athena now has moved out of Pisces. So she was with you in Pisces for many weeks, and then now she's in Aries, in your second house of resources. And here she's in a sextile to your fourth house of what you need to feel secure. And I think this is an opportunity for you to see, oh, there's a different way of dealing with this. There's a different way of dealing with money. There's a different way of seeing what I consider to be a resource, what I can initiate, how I can work with that. So Mercury is in that second house of money and resources, and it's ruling the fourth house. So there's a number of tie-ins here, including also the sextile from Saturn to Venus, from the second to the fourth. And and the focal point of all of that attention, especially the yaw that is formed by the Saturn-Venus sextile, is that moon at the time of the lunation, because now we're into the next day, but the moon, which is 11 something of 11 degrees, 20 arc minutes of Scorpio, that's the solution or that's the focal point. And so again, it has to do with what you have faith in. It's what you feel is your drive and purpose, what gives your meaning to your life. And so these new things can inspire you to find a new way of feeling secure or feeling your way forward into finding happiness, finding a bigger vision for yourself, for your life that is innovative, because Pallas herself is quite innovative, seeing new systems, new ways of doing things. And in a sextile to Uranus, it's going to be really powerful for you in terms of where you either, this issue of security or the issue of money itself, or even property itself, issues around spending money on property, investing in property. Jupiter in your fifth. Um, again, is that a good idea? That's a question for you, not for me. So that would be one of the questions that is for you to answer. So what else have we got here? Pisces, you've got, of course, Pluto in your 12th house now with Juno, and that's been squared by the sun in the week leading up to this full moon. So there may be something that you're realizing that comes through a dream or something that you have become aware of, and that is something you're ready to express or understand in a practical way with the sun in the third. And the sun rules your sixth house of work, so it can impact the way that you're doing your work or the way you communicate about your work. Or about health, because the 12th house is health as well. both physical, mental health is the sixth and 12th house axis, and then the sun rules your sixth house. So the sun is in the third house. So notice again where you might be finding that too much busyness, too much investment in the everyday stuff is actually undermining your well-being. And that's an example. It's not happening. I'm just saying that's one way of reading this chart. Right. I think I'm gonna have to walk the dog. I definitely need to take a break from the from this damn computer. Thank you for being here and liking and subscribing and all those things. You can't do those hypes, whatever that means, a new addiction tool from YouTube because I don't monetize my channel. But thank you for asking for those who have done. I do appreciate your support. I have a buy me a coffee thing in the description box, and that's always very welcome, especially thanks to those who've already done so. And of course, you can have a reading with me as well if you want to, and the link is below as well. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye bye.